Good morning. I'm Terry Lohman, co-chair for Unitarian Universalists for a Just Economic Community. And today we're going to talk about all the fun of getting old. Our first speaker is Randy Block, and he's from Michigan and is the executive director of the Michigan State Action Network. And he's also the chair, I believe, of Gray Panthers. Do you want to tell us about that, Randy?
Well, thanks so much, Terry. I really appreciate this opportunity to share not only about me, because this is not about Randy Block. It's about us and our common work toward social justice as we get older. I am 75 years old. I have a BA in journalism and a master's degree in social work, which specializes in community organizing. So this is kind of like my love to do this that I started out early with. But at the same time, I worked for a living for a paycheck for 30 years as a planner and a manager of services for older people. I do have, my wife and I have 2 grown children. And as of just this last week, we now have 2 grandchildren below the age of 2. So we're doing exciting things but maybe some of you older folks have already been there, done that when it comes to having grandchildren. So that's another dimension. It's not just justice, it's just us too. Serving as a convener is our word for head of Gray Panthers of Metro Detroit. We meet monthly. I've been doing this since 1978. So I started when I was in Gray Panthers in 31, and now I'm 75. So this has been a long haul for me. But we meet monthly. We have speakers each month, talk about policy issues such as Social Security, civil rights, women's rights, and environmental justice, voting rights, and so on. So it's a broad range of multi-issue organization. And then I'm also director. I've resisted calling myself the executive director, but I'm the director of the Michigan Unitarian Universalist Social Justice Network. And I started that 20 years ago. So it's 2 long haul commitments to doing social justice work. I would just say that as part of so I'm chair of a local Gray Panthers group, and I'm also the chair of the National Gray Panthers. So I kind of keep busy. I regularly publish action alerts that are mailed to our national, state, and regional networks. And the challenge for that, doing action alerts, is you got to have your facts. If I send something out that's totally screwed up in terms of the facts, there goes my credibility as a leader. So I have to spend time each day reading the newspapers and listening to the news, and also listening to other people about what really is going on in our world that we need to address. So it's part of the challenge of being an older activist is like the challenge of being a younger activist. We have to inform ourselves. We have to be listening to other folks. So that's an important kind of thing that's sort of obvious to people who are activists, is you got to know what you're talking about and know what you're planning to do. I will just say also with my UU State Action Network, which again, I feel like I'm kind of proud of it because we're the second one in the country after California. So that's one of my talking points, is that we've been doing this for a while. But we have in our statewide UU Justice Network, we've been addressing issues such as LGBT rights, women's rights, very important, involved with reproductive justice, involved with anti-racism work, environmental justice, and so forth. So what's it like to be an older person who's active in social justice? Well, it can be very rewarding. And I think that's kind of what you're going to hear from other people today, that it can be very rewarding, but it also can be challenging. Again, we have that commitment to keep on learning rather than just talking about what we think we know. We also have to be not only up to date on the issues, but we have to be in relationship with other organizers who might be from other organizations that may be trying to do the same kind of things we're doing. So we have to be informed about the issues, but we also have to be in relationship with other groups that we can partner with. And so, so that's part of the challenges. One of the things that I'm slow to learn, but I'm still learning, is that I need to keep learning. Every time there's some kind of thing that comes up that's stressful, and I have my share of stressful moments, just like anybody else. Maybe there's others out there that never have stress, but in that stressful moment, instead of just feeling bad and then trying to tough it out, I will ask myself, what is it that I can learn? What was happening to me that made me feel frustrated like I might be feeling? What can I learn from that that I can apply next time around? And it's really opened my heart and my minds up to being able to learn from my life experiences, of which, of course, older people have a bunch of life experiences to learn from. So the other part about being older, which is kind of like being younger, is that we continue to need to know that we as persons don't have all the answers. We are smart and maybe active, but we don't have all the answers. That means that we have, if we're being honest with ourselves, we need to listen to other people. We need to hear their truths, even when we totally disagree with them. So but that's a great organizing tool, is that we need to be in good communication with other people, listening as well as just broadcasting. So how did I get involved with social justice in the first place? Well, it did start before I turned 65. I was drafted into the Vietnam War, and I just was out of college, but it was a time that when the war was going on that I felt was deeply immoral. And then to add on to that, I was going to have to be a person that would shoot people, have to kill people for an immoral war. So with that kind of thing, it was like, speaking of stress, that was very stressful. So I applied for and got the first conscientious objector status in my little rural Iowa county. So Terry, I have Iowa roots as well. So in that situation, though, having to take a stand on the issue of war, which actually was a major moral issue during the 60s, gave me that opportunity to realize that there are things going around me that I don't know about, but have a tremendous policy, not just a policy issue, but they have a social justice issue. So I began to see, since I became a conscientious objector, I began to see life as through a justice lens. Maybe there's workers out in California, workers, or migrant workers. I wrote a paper on that when I was in my undergraduate, and it became meaningful for me because, wow, this is somebody else who's going through the stress of injustice. So that's a little bit about how I got started in injustice. So I guess that the part that I can maybe bring to this discussion too is that my somewhat unique experience. I think I've been in Gray Panthers longer than anybody else in the country actively involved. That is, there are folks that were older than me. I'm 75, but I've been actively involved for, you do the math, but I started in 1978. And it's, so in either case, the Gray Panthers movement is something that people don't know about. It's, for one thing, the whole Gray Panthers movement closed its doors in 2015. And there were three of us that felt that our movement, which believed that younger and older people need to work together for social justice, rather than just older people doing their thing or younger people doing their thing, that we need to be, the motto of Gray Panthers was age and youth in action. So with that in mind, we, as Gray Panthers, we would have speakers each month. I think I mentioned that, but we also will have speakers on topics that were more than just Social Security and Medicare that apply to older people. we might have topics that include the environment, may have topics that include of racial justice, LGBT rights, and so forth. So the big thing that makes Gray Panthers really different, besides being older people that are working on social justice, is that we do aspire at least to being intergenerational. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, ageism is an important part of what I was trying to tell you today, but ageism means that we sometimes put ourselves down as well as other people down because, hey, I'm old, now I'm over the hill. Well, that's BS. I'll use that for the purpose of this video recording, that we can't put ourselves down as being over the hill when we really have a lot going for us, a lot of experience and so on. But ageism can cut two ways. We as older people can be putting younger people down. We might think, well, what do they know? I've been doing this for 50 years and they've only been doing this for 3 or 4 years. So we can be ageist toward younger people. Society has more lawsuits going about age discrimination than any other form of discrimination, but it has some of the least accomplishments in terms of challenging that form of discrimination. So what can we do about, if we're trying to be working for social justice plus doing intergenerational work? Number one is that I'm going to have 3 recommendations here for those of you who want recommendations. Here they are. Number one, try to be more aware of ageism, both in ourselves as well as in society, because what we're doing is we're holding ourselves and younger people back by keeping lower level assumptions about who we are and what we can do. Number two, I'm going to urge everybody who's listening to support a UU state action network. And I've got one in Michigan, but there are others in many other states as well. So if you want to know if there's a state action network in your city of the country, go to a website called cusan.org, www.cuusan.org. And then know that there are Gray Panther networks in about 7 states. We're not as big as, certainly not as big as Unitarians and AARP, but we have Gray Panther networks in California, Oregon, Washington, D.C., New York, Florida, Michigan, Kansas, and Texas. So to get on my action alert list, which I do, excuse me, I do action alerts for all 3 groups that I'm involved with. You can just go to my UU Justice, to my Gray Panthers MetroDetroit.org website, or you can go to my UUSAN website, which is uujustice.org, and then say, hey, I want more information about what you're doing. And I will often, almost every week, I get calls from people who want to start a Gray Panther chapter in their network. So Gray Panthers is not an extinct organization. We're not only keeping it going, but we're trying to keep it growing. So my last thing, in terms of what my recommendations for activism in older age, is that when you're planning a social justice or community service event, consider the value of including people from all ages both as organizers and participants, age and youth in action. So that's my presentation. And I thank again Terry and the rest of you for being part of this. And I will just say that my Gray Panthers are eager to hear what the rest of you say, because we think older people have a whole lot to contribute. So thanks again.
I met Randy when I was working with Iowa's State Action Network, and Randy was the one person I could count on to help me. If I hit a wall, Randy knew what to do. And I will appreciate that for as long as I have the memory. Next, we're going to hear Barbara Myers, Reverend Barbara Myers talk, and she'll tell us about the organization she leads and about her experiences.
Hello, thank you for this opportunity to talk about my work and why I think it's important. I am a Unitarian Universalist community minister, and my ministry focuses on mental health issues. I'm affiliated with Mission Peak UU congregation in Fremont, California. This is my second career. I started this career at age 53. It's largely motivated by my own experience with a mental health crisis and how engagement with a congregation helped me to recover. I'm now 76 years old, and I don't plan on retiring anytime soon. I work for a mental health center with a quarter-time job. I started volunteering with them when I was in seminary, and they hired me when I graduated. So I've been with them for over 20 years at this point. It is called Life Reaching Across to Life, or just plain Reaching Across. At Reaching Across, we have a number of groups that focus on different things: basic mental health support, creative writing, journaling, music appreciation, spirituality, nutrition, Tai Chi, and creating a wellness recovery action plan, or WRAP, among others. And a lot of this is because I know that recovering from mental health issues is a holistic, something that you need to look at your whole person, not just the particular symptoms that you're having, but all aspects of your life. WRAP that I mentioned is an evidence-based practice where people can learn how to support their own mental health wellness. And I highly recommend it for anybody that wants to look into it. I am a Medi-Cal peer support specialist, which is a new California designation where peers like me can bill time with clients to California's Medi-Cal insurance program. Above my time that I'm spending with Reaching Across, I've been active in leadership in the UU disability organization, Equal Access, since it started in 2007. I'm currently the board secretary. About 4 years ago, some other UUs suggested that we start a UU-wide organization focusing on mental health. So we started the UU Mental Health Network, which is now a related organization to the UUA. I am currently the board president of the UU Mental Health Network. In the year 2020, Skinner House Books published my book, Held, Showing Up for Each Other's Mental Health. Looks like this. And it's a guide for every member of the congregation on how they can play an important role in supporting each other. It has been used by a number of congregations as a congregational book read. Beyond this, I am a wife, mother, grandmother, runner, fiber artist, voracious reader, lifelong learner, cook, and other things. And I'm not slowing down. If anyone is interested in working on mental health issues within a UU context, you'd be welcome in the UU Mental Health Network. If you're interested, you can find out more at uumentalhealth.org. So how can UU congregations be helpful? In the work that I've done with congregations, I've learned that nearly everyone has had some experience with a mental health problem, either in themselves or in someone that they love. Congregations can help by learning and teaching their members about what they can do to support each other's mental health. Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara. As a point, we were all discussing birthdays, and Barbara just had hers. Mine is May 17th, and Randy's is in October. The three of us were all born in the same year, 1947. I don't know Sally's and Cindy's birthday, and I'm not going to ask because that's prying too much. But Randy and Barbara and I all agreed that it's important to own your age, and when you lie about your age, you're really taking a ding out of yourself every time. Okay, our next speaker is Cindy Peister. She's on our board for Unitarian Universalists for a Just Economic Community, and she's a peace and climate justice activist.
Oh, hi, everybody. Thank you so much for including me in this. I'm really honored to be here with all of you, Terry, Randy, Reverend Myers, and dear Sally. Anyway, talking about birthdays is part of my story because I was born the day that the United States bombed Hiroshima. And that had a tremendous impact on my life. And before I reached my teens, I knew that I would be working in justice. I didn't understand what an activist was, but I quickly learned. I came of age during the Vietnam War and civil rights movement. I was a little young to participate in some of that, but my heart was fully into both of those. I went on to have a career working in mental health, which so I can understand what Barbara's talking about. And I did a lot of activism within that context. But even while I was doing the mental health work, I was really very, very involved in all kinds of things that were going on around me. One of the things about being a graying activist, I think, is the long-term perspective that we can bring to this work. And every level of action that anyone takes in their lives builds on that next steps. I had the opportunity and after I retired from working in mental health to, was it after? It was during the 80s, so I guess I was still working, sorry there, to host and produce my own alternative media television programming. And I had a wonderful opportunity doing that work to meet activists from around the United States and beyond. And some of the people that I was, and that also led then to my producing and a documentary on US committed war crimes that more or less went viral with 400 hits an hour from 150 countries the first week. And that contributed to the Center for Constitutional Rights requesting a thematic hearing with the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights, which they chose not to move forward on. But during that process, I was able to meet people like Daniel Ellsberg, who we're all losing now, who's just one of the foremost activists in the United States, and many other really, truly wonderful people. My husband was a Vietnam veteran after he died in 2012, and I took some time off. When I came back, I wanted to work on climate. And I quickly realized the impact of the military on climate, which is 5% of emissions every year globally. And I was honored to be provided the means to go to COP27 in Egypt this last November by the Women's International League for Peace and Freedom, who almost completely paid my ticket, which was amazing. And I learned a lot and am able to bring that back. Right at this point, I just want to throw this out quickly. I don't want to talk too long here, but I'm very concerned about the latest report from the United Nations, the synthesis report, which is covers 8,000 pages of work by thousands of scientists worldwide. And they tell us that we're overshooting the 1.5 Celsius goal by a long shot and much more quickly. This is definitely an intergenerational problem that young people play a huge role in bringing forward and can bring all of us together. So I thank you again for giving me the opportunity to share here. I'm really honored to be with all of you. And I don't know if I'll get it together again for the GA, but last year I submitted an action of immediate witness on Code Red for Humanity that I hope to revise. It missed by one vote last time, which was my own vote, because you're given 3 votes. And one of those votes I used for the AIW that won by 1 vote. Anyway, I think it's an important issue and I hope I can get that out to the GA. But thank you all very much. I appreciate zip it.
Thank you, Cindy. I learn new things every day about you. Our last speaker is Sally Gellert, and she's the co-chair for UU's for a Just Economic Community along with me. And we complement each other really well. Sally can do things I can't do, and somehow I get stuff done that I don't know if Sally could do it, but at any rate, she's a great co-chair for me. Do you want to go ahead and tell me how you got here?
Okay, so
Yes.
I'm here calling in from Lenapehoking, which is my part is now known as Bergen County, New Jersey, just over the George Washington Bridge from New York. I started my activism the first Earth Day, I guess, when I was a sophomore at Paramus High School, and we buried an internal combustion engine. Well, looking back with an adult perspective, that wasn't the best choice. We kind of polluted that bit of schoolyard. But the enthusiasm was much like that of the Sunrise Movement and the Extinction Rebellion today. And finally, we are seeing electric engines enter the mainstream, but realizing that just converting ICE engines to electric is not enough. Well, I took a break from activism. I went into theater and bookkeeping and publishing. I got re-energized with the 2008 presidential election. Like so many, I was hoodwinked. As one of the 23,000 that originally abandoned my Barack Obama, to form Get FISA Right in objection to candidate Obama's support for warrantless wiretapping, I should have better heeded one of our citizens strategy think tank leaders who told us how much more centrist than a liberal, and which was then not a bad word, was then Senator Obama. Fast forward to September 2011, off I went to visit Liberty Square, previously and now again called Zuccotti Park, and Occupy Wall Street. I'd make visits to the park and bring socks or vitamins, some small donation, and having conversations that were truly unique. The range of people and topics was vast. The intellectual stimulation was unparalleled. I traveled up to Columbia University a number of Saturday afternoons to join the Occupy alternative banking discussions. They were complimented by Special Inspector General of the TARP program as having the most professional commentary on the Dodd-Frank bill that he had ever seen outside of the financial industry. What an education. A friend and I took a day trip to the Occupy National Gathering in July 2012. And upon getting home, I turned right around and went back. I had to be with those. Those were my peeps. For a semi-enlightened American history buff, to envision the future of the country while sitting on the mall in front of Carpenter Hall, or after we were routed in Franklin Park, it was truly a special experience. You know, the part of the founders that was the radical part was really being felt that day, that weekend. And to this day, I meet Occupy veterans in many activist circles. I think of the movement saying, they tried to bury us, but they did not know that we were seeds. Months later, two of the Philadelphian occupiers got a call from Occupy Sandy, New York, who were hearing from New Jerseyans needing aid. They reached out to me, to others of us, to create Occupy Sandy, New Jersey. We started with daily phone calls on Maestro. First, who has an emergency? Then what news of the aid programs? And what do we need to organize? And eventually we moved to weekly calls and became part of the various county long-term recovery committees. An anonymous Red Cross person helped us get connected with the established disaster recovery groups. And someone in state government helped us get access to the state warehouse. A union in Philadelphia licensed us a warehouse. And my reaction was, oh, great. So here we are in New Jersey. We've got a Philadelphia warehouse. We've got Occupy Sandy, New Jersey. Once again, we're stuck in the middle, but not really seriously, but can we get a place in state? All the New York teams, they play out in East Rutherford, New Jersey. Why aren't they New Jersey teams? But the Jersey Devils, of course, acknowledge their roots. But that's only semi-serious. We were really appreciative of that warehouse, and we did good work. Ocean County's long-term recovery construction case management committee chair people. My role as the advocacy committee chair of the Bergen County Long-Term Recovery Committee occupiers. And when I reached out to the Hudson County Committee for a survivor who had called the Occupy phone number, a Catholic Charities case manager invited me to join their recovery committee, saying they could use some Occupy energy. Another activist memory is public PSE&G's Greenfest. I'm not sure what year that was, but a local utility running an environmental festival just didn't seem right. Had to go. Turned out to be pretty good. It was at Liberty State Park, had organic food vendors, had a whole range of compost options for your utensils and people there to tell you what goes where. Excellent workshops, speakers including Ocean Environmental Sylvia Earle, who actually grew up at the Jersey Shore, Ed Begley Jr., and I went to a workshop on advocacy. And from the audience, I was able to give advice to the younger folks there. It really felt good passing on my knowledge to a younger generation. That was the first time I really felt like an elder, which has happened again to some degree in the great strike groups. I say I was at Occupy. You were at Occupy? Guys, 10 years ago, but yeah. So I'm also learning technology from them. I'm now on Discord. So yeah. I'm also now a member of Radical Elders, which I first learned about last March, and which is made up of an amazing group of long-term serious movement activists, intentionally led by those of the global majority. So as a colleague of Occupy Sandy, New Jersey said, keep loving, keep fighting.
Thanks, Sally.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing that struck me when Randy was talking was I think somehow or another there's this expectation when you get old you're going to be really comfortable, and the problem with activists is that we know too much to be really comfortable. We have to keep going and going and going. Does anybody want to expand on that? How uncomfortable we are, because I know particularly Sally and Cindy are not comfortable. They want to keep doing.
Yeah, you see, you read the corporate brainwashing, you've seen it all before, and you see the younger people who haven't seen it, and you're afraid they're going to get sucked in. Most of them are pretty savvy, but even so, you can't just let this stuff go by. They can all the rhetoric that comes back to business as usual. No more. Yeah.
I'm going to just add on to that, and I appreciate the question very much, Terry, too. Why can't we just sort of sit back and relax during the environment and not have to think about all the things? But and we're all Unitarians, so I guess we could say we know about certain basic principles, and we also, of course, are going through the process of expanding what that means of our principles. But if you look at the first principle, having respect for the worth and dignity of every human being, and then you read the newspaper, you see how many ways that people are being hurt or damaged, or that are different people in political positions are exploiting other people. You don't give up on your first principle. You don't give up on your UU principles just because you retire. You could retire maybe from a paid job, but you can't really retire from the life of a conscientious person. So that's my 2 cents worth there.
I guess I'll jump in on that real quick too, Terry, if you don't mind. It's devastating to see what's going on in the world today. And being at COP, it was the largest one that they ever had, close to 50,000 people there, 11,000 people there in the role that I had, which was a delegate observer from an NGO. And just devastating to know that we are overshooting what is going to make us a livable planet, and how this is not only affecting the global south right now, where people are dying all the time in Africa and island nations in the global south. I mean, it's devastating to really find out how bad it is. And then also to know that that's what's projected ahead for future generations, for the entire world, if we don't get this solved. So the urgency is absolutely incredible. The impacts on future generations are devastating. So how can one be silent? How can one be calm? How can one move forward with this work without losing your own personal integrity? So for myself, it doesn't matter so much that I'm losing my hearing. It doesn't matter that I don't have the energy that I used to have. It doesn't matter that, it comes at tremendous cost in terms of family, relationships, friendships, having any sort of a life. We've got to move. We've got to give what we can while we can, because time is running out to make the changes that must be made. So I think we're all in the same boat with that. And I would encourage any younger activists that want to get involved with this. As difficult and as heartrending as the work is, it's very, very rewarding, as Randy mentioned. Yeah, I mean, you know that whatever happens at the end of my life, I'll be able to live with the choices I made.
I think of the quote that I've got on a button somewhere: activism is the alternate to despair.
I've done a presentation to my UU church and to other organizations called the 2 Roads to Retirement. And I did this maybe within the last 10 years or so. So you look at, and I've had conversations with people when I was in my 30s and my 40s. What does it mean to be an older person? What does it mean to retire? And there's a common perception is that you can retire, you can play a lot of cards, you can go, you can do a lot of traveling, you can really enjoy your life. And basically enjoying was meaning withdrawing from the pressures of the world. And then that's one road to retirement is withdrawal from the world. It's kind of like trying to insulate yourself from the challenges that are out there. And the other road for retirement has something to do with that we need to continue to be engaged because we have values and we also have insights about how the world needs to be made differently for the betterment of everyone. So I still go back to that old presentation I've done of 2 roads to retirement means that we have a choice that we make but when we get over the certain age, how are we going to live? How are we going to use our time?
I just want to add that put this thought in front of you that it's never too late to live your life with purpose and meaning. No matter what your circumstances are, it's never too late to redefine yourself to do something that you really believe in. And life is joyful when you find that.
One of the reasons I am a UU is that they challenge my my mental work. I found that before that I lived in a bit of a bubble, and it was Irv who got up and talked about climate change 30 years ago, and Suzanne who got up and talked about economic justice and how we should tip the maids in the hotel. These are things that if I hadn't been in UU, I would never have been exposed to. I don't think it was really powerful for me. What's gotten better for you as you've gotten older? I know one of the things, I was supposed to be a social worker if I followed my preference tests that I took. And I took maybe 3 or 4 of them, and every time it came back, it said, you need to be a social worker. But when I was 30, I looked like I was 18. And I knew I didn't have the gravitas to really make the difference that needed to be made. So I did business and everything. Now I think I do have the gravitas. I just need to work at it. Anybody else have anything that's gotten better as you've gotten older?
My grandmother used to say, as you get older, you get bolder. You don't worry about what everybody else thinks so much. You can go, you got some experience behind you and you can just go and do.
Yeah, I think it's I've gotten to the point where I don't think I have anything to prove to anyone. I'm not trying to advance at all anywhere. I'm just living my life, doing the things that I think need to be done. And that's sort of the ultimate joy in living.
Okay.
Just add to that too, Barbara, it's just when you're working hard on a campaign, and this is something that you're trying to organize people to do, and lo and behold, sometimes things really do come out the way you're working for, that becomes a joy that you can't get just from winning a game of pinochle. It's just a total other joy that is a reward for the hard work. And sometimes it takes years and years, But in Michigan, we've had 30 lean or 40 very lean years where we've just struggling to go uphill. And suddenly we had redistricting. And then suddenly we've been having all kinds of things that are getting passed in the Michigan legislature. It just keeps us really going just to stay ahead of the game so we can inform people. Well, look, we just passed some things on gun violence. We just passed something to protect women's right to choose. We just passed restoring the right to, eliminating the right to work, allowing unions to be stronger than they are. So these are all things that happened in the last month in Michigan. So that's joy and more joy.
Yeah, we should live long enough to see that some of the things we advocate actually come to pass. And that is one advantage of being around. I have experiences where I did something 20 years ago and somebody comes up and says how powerful that was to them. And you're, oh, I can make a difference.
I remember my dad at one point in the 80s when I was getting discouraged and, Reagan years and all that. And Dad said, your generation stopped the war. I went, okay, there is hope. Yeah.
I think Randy touched on working together, different age groups. Our country is one of the most segregated age-wise. We're a segregated country where age-wise, we have communities just for retired people. We have communities that are just for religious people like Church Falls, Virginia. What can we do to work together, to bring people together, to be intergenerational, interracial?
Instead of saying, how do I find Black people to come to my white UU society? Go to the local Black organizations meetings and just go. Don't ask them to, just be a part. Gradually you make a relationship and things happen.
On the intergenerational level, I just think it's really important that we're not just working for ourselves, although that's important. We need to know that those who we want to work with, that we're also working for things that are going to impact their lives, that are important to them, that we're sharing the cause, whatever that cause might be.
Yeah, we had it kind of again, the Gray Panthers was a group that certainly the public, if it knows who the Gray Panthers exist, assume it's just a group of senior citizens that are raising hell a bit. Well, with the with our goal to try to re-own our mission of being intergenerational, we've come up with some new ideas just in the last couple of years. One would be doing just what Sally was talking about, is we want to be able to visit with younger persons' organizations and to invite them to let them know a little bit about what we're trying to do. So we have building relationships with youth activist groups. But we're also having a person that will help us, a young Generation Z person who's going to helping us to do a better job at social media and outreach to students. So there's, and we also will have students come and speak to our monthly meetings and say, here's what we're doing, we need your help. So it's kind of promoting intergenerational communication, at least with the activists that are out there. So that's my 2 cents worth.
When we go back to our own youth, I mean, what was one of the common things that my generation heard was, don't trust anybody over 30, well, now we're all well past 30. And it's true that the older generation, I think, has a bad rap in the sense that, look at where our country is. Look at, we've had many successes, but we've had more failures. We've had a lot of assassinations. A lot of our leaders were killed off as we went through life here, and it wasn't fun. There were a lot of setbacks. but there are some of us who have spent our entire lives working on this, or a good chunk of it, and who are dedicating our lives now that we're retired to do these kind of things for the good of all. So hopefully we'll be forgiven for our failures. But I do think that it's really important that we do try to connect with people across all the boundaries that we're confronted with, whether it's racial boundaries or age-related boundaries or whatever it is. We're all human beings on this planet, and the planet's getting smaller.
Yeah. Ageism is a problem. And it goes both ways, as you're pointing out. It isn't just young people thinking old people don't have anything to offer. It goes the other way. And one thing I've learned
Yeah.
is that you need to be listening to the young people because they have perspectives that are valid, and it just isn't that easy culturally for older people to pick up on what the kids are saying. And I'm just looking, I'm a gay man, and I look at how we've struggled to get through just coming out, and then we had HIV, and now today the movement has gotten, well, it's driven by young people. Something like 20% of the young people just really don't identify as being straight. They don't necessarily think they're gay or whatever, but it's huge. So we need to listen to those young people and see how they got there. Do you have any input with that? Have you learned from young people? I keep learning from other people. It's other people that keep me going the way I think I need to go, and I wouldn't be able to do it by myself.
One of the things that I found particularly helpful is that young people today are much more willing to embrace the fact that they've had mental health difficulties and are helping to break down the stigma. And I find that to be incredibly helpful and hopeful for the future. So, yes.
Yeah, that's neat.
I think I had a conversation. I worked with Crowd Rescue HQ during the summer of Harvey and Irma and Maria, and I was talking to one of my colleagues on the phone, and he was saying, "Oh, well, I live in my parents' basement, and I have all these college loans." And I said, "Yeah, our generation really did you a disservice with that. We didn't do right." And he said, "Thank you. So many people don't acknowledge that." And it's important to acknowledge those intergenerational issues and talk about them like human beings. And find the common ground because it's there.
Yeah, my statewide UU Social Justice Network includes special focus on LGBTQ plus rights as one of its 5 top priorities. And so we have, we've hired one great young middle-aged lesbian who's just so good with people. And we're working in coalitions with people for some changes. And I'm just so uplifted that when we got, in Michigan, they call it the Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act, where there's civil rights for everyone except for folks from the LGBTQ plus communities. And so we've had all kinds of activities over the years. And finally now in 2023, that we got just 2 weeks ago, got an amendment to the Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act that extends those rights to people from various sexual identities and gender affirmations.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just, but you see it even more. It's so deeply sad. And I guess you could make me angry too, that they're using LGBT folks as fodder for their political gain. And so we've got this division in America where I think Unitarians and other people of goodwill are needed even more, that we're standing up for other people's rights, even though I'm a straight dude and I'm a white male. So I've got all the things against me here in terms of I might be oppressive just with my identity, But so we have to be finding ways to be supportive and engaged in spite of whatever identities we may have and assumptions that may have about it. But so we've made some real progress in Michigan, and I just want to share that because we have gone a long time without those successes, and it's happening now. So those of you who want to know what we're doing in Michigan, give me a call or send me a text at 248-224-5572. Here's a group of people that we don't look at that I was just learning about last night was more older people who are in prisons. And
Oh,
they have
terrible.
higher percentage. There's a lot of older people in prisons that are just being warehoused, and they get sick and they have to wait in long lines just to get their prescriptions. It's just an outrage about what's happening. And when prisons are like out of sight, out of mind kind of thing. But there's a lot of older people there that are just costing the taxpayers money. And at the same time, they're just wasting human life there. That there could be people that could have some kind of a humanitarian release should be used more often for
Absolutely.
people in prison. So that's my pitch for that issue.
Yeah, the privatized prisons are abominable, and as Reverend Myers well knows, the criminalization of the mentally ill is a huge problem in this country. And as we look at the whole issue of suicide, our younger generation of all races is being highly stressed. The indigenous population of is committing suicide. A lot of our young Native Americans are committing suicide. I mean, it's across all borders. We have to give our young people a future. And I think that's what all of us here are trying to do, is create a better life with our own work to bring more value into the future for other people, our own generation and also other generations.
And look at the older political prisoners, the Leonard Peltier, the Mumia Abdul-Jabbar, the other ones who are less well known, who are suffering in that totally. And most prisoners are not in private prisons. Most of them are public prisons with private contracts that are, totally abusive. We in New Jersey read Daniel Sered's book on restorative justice, Until We Reckon. I recommend it for all UUs, for all people. There was a good article recently in Mother Jones about a gentleman in prison. He had a rough life. He did I don't know, some horrible things, but he's in jail for 50 years. But he's got himself an education and was actually able to go to a college campus as a co-teacher from his prison cell, shackled and so forth. There are ways. We can do better. We must do better.
Thank you. I think our hour is coming to a close. I want to thank all of our speakers. Everybody had something really unique to contribute to this. I think what we're trying to do is create optimism, and older people can give that. I remember when we had the gasoline shortage and my car was on its last leg, and I said, what do I do? And Dad said, oh, you don't have to worry about it. There'll be more fuel. Just do what you need to do, and life will go on. And I think kids need to hear that we get so involved that we don't realize there will be a way. It's not going to be good for everybody. I understand that. What we can survive as well-educated UUs with a comfortable middle class is going to be a lot better than poor people and marginalized people. But we can help. Thank you very much. We'll call it a close.
Thank you all.
Yeah, thanks, Bill.
Thank
Yep.
you, Randy.
Thanks, Terry.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.